El Salvador is one of the smallest countries in Central America, but it has one of the most complicated and risky economies in the world. For years, the country struggled with high poverty, low wages, and heavy dependence on the US dollar. In fact, El Salvador has been using the US dollar as its official currency since the year 2001. This decision was meant to stabilize the economy, reduce inflation, and encourage foreign investment. But the truth is, it didn't solve the main problem. A huge portion of the Salvadoran economy relies on remittances, money sent by Salvadorans living abroad, especially in the United States. This money is the backbone of many families in El Salvador. It makes up a significant part of the country's economy, and it affects how people live day to day. However, there is a major issue. Sending money through banks or money transfer services is expensive and slow. In many cases, the fees can be extremely high, sometimes up to 10% of the total amount. For families living on the edge, losing that much money in fees is a huge problem. Now imagine you're a family in El Salvador receiving money from a relative in the US. You receive a portion of your income from remittances, but every month you lose a big chunk of that money to fees. This is not just inconvenient, it actually prevents people from building savings or improving their lives. It's a major reason why poverty remains high and why the economy stays weak. So the question is, what can a small country do to fix this? Many experts said El Salvador should improve its banking system, build infrastructure, and attract foreign investment. But those are long-term solutions. The country needed a bold idea, something disruptive. That's where Bitcoin came in. Bitcoin is a digital currency that was created in 2009. It is decentralized, meaning no government or bank controls it. Bitcoin transactions can be fast and cheap, and they can cross borders easily. For a country like El Salvador, which relies heavily on international money transfers, Bitcoin suddenly became a possible solution. In 2021, the president of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, made a shocking announcement. Bitcoin would become legal tender in the country. This means Bitcoin would be treated like the US dollar. It would be accepted for payments, salaries, and government transactions. It was a bold move that surprised the world. People were skeptical. Experts warned that it could cause financial chaos. Some critics even called it reckless. The idea seemed risky because Bitcoin is famous for its price volatility. The price of Bitcoin can rise or fall dramatically in a short period of time. For an economy that is already fragile, using a volatile currency could create instability. If the value of Bitcoin drops suddenly, people could lose a lot of money. And if it rises quickly, prices could increase and create inflation. This is why many countries avoid Bitcoin as an official currency. But Bukele argued that Bitcoin could bring major benefits, said it could reduce the cost of remittances, attract foreign investment, and bring financial services to people who don't have bank accounts. He believed Bitcoin could modernize the economy and give El Salvador a new identity in the global market. In the months leading up to the decision, the government launched a plan to support Bitcoin adoption. They created a national Bitcoin wallet called Chivo, which means cool in local slang. The government offered free Bitcoin to citizens who signed up for the wallet as a way to encourage adoption. They also installed Bitcoin ATMs across the country and promoted the use of digital payments. Despite these efforts, the initial reaction was mixed. Many Salvadorans were confused or suspicious. They didn't understand how Bitcoin works, and they feared losing money. Some were worried about the government monitoring their transactions, so others simply didn't trust a digital currency. At the same time, critics from around the world criticized the move. Financial institutions like the IMF warned that adopting Bitcoin could create financial risks. They said it could undermine economic stability and cause problems for the banking system. Many investors were concerned that the country was making a dangerous gamble. But behind the controversy, there was a deeper truth. El Salvador was not just trying to adopt Bitcoin, it was trying to solve a structural problem in its economy. The country had been stuck in a cycle of poverty and dependency. It had limited access to international banking, high fees for remittances, and low levels of financial inclusion. Many Salvadorans do not have bank accounts, which means they rely on cash. Is not only inconvenient, it can also be dangerous due to theft and crime. Bitcoin offered a potential solution to these problems. It could provide a faster, cheaper way to send money across borders, could allow people to store value digitally. It could also open up new opportunities for entrepreneurship and innovation. The government hoped that Bitcoin could bring a new kind of economic freedom. Another reason for the decision was political. Bukele wanted to position El Salvador as a forward-thinking and innovative country. He wanted to attract tech companies and Bitcoin investors. The move was not just economic, it was also about branding. The country wanted to become known as the first nation to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender. This branding strategy is important because it can attract attention and investment. When the world watches a country making a bold move, it creates curiosity. Investors and entrepreneurs may see opportunities in the country. They may want to set up businesses, build infrastructure, or develop technology. This is exactly what Bukele hoped would happen. However, the government still faced major challenges. Implementing a new currency system is not easy. It requires education, infrastructure, and trust. Many people in El Salvador still lacked access to smartphones or internet, which made it difficult to use digital wallets. The government had to work hard to build the necessary infrastructure. So why did El Salvador take the Bitcoin gamble? The answer is simple. Because the country needed a solution, and Bitcoin offered a powerful tool. The economy was struggling. And traditional methods were not enough. The country needed a disruptive change. Bitcoin provided a way to reduce remittance fees, increase financial inclusion, and attract investment. It was a higher-risk move, but it was also a bold attempt to break free from long-term economic stagnation. The key point here is that El Salvador didn't adopt Bitcoin because it was trendy. It adopted Bitcoin because it was desperate for change. The country saw Bitcoin as a way to improve the lives of its citizens, reduce costs, and open new opportunities. It was a gamble, yes, but it was also a strategic move aimed at solving real problems. In the next chapter, we'll explore what happened after the adoption, the results, the controversies, and the surprising truth behind the Bitcoin gamble. After El Salvador officially adopted Bitcoin as legal tender in 2021, the world waited to see what would happen. Some people expected chaos, others expected success. The truth, however, is somewhere in between, and it reveals a surprising story of risk, innovation, and real economic change. The first thing that happened was the immediate reaction from the public. Many Salvadorans were skeptical. They were not sure how to use Bitcoin. They worried about its volatility, and they feared losing money. This is understandable because Bitcoin is a digital currency that can be difficult to understand, especially for people who rely on cash and traditional banking. To make things easier, the government introduced the Chivo wallet, a digital wallet app that allowed citizens to store and use Bitcoin easily. They also offered a free incentive of $30 worth of Bitcoin to every person who signed up. This move was meant to encourage people to try Bitcoin and to help them understand how it works. However, the rollout was not smooth. Many people experienced technical issues with the app. Some had trouble registering, others faced glitches, and the system was not fully prepared for such a big transition. These problems created frustration among users. Many people also remained suspicious of the government and worried that the wallet could be used to track their transactions. At the same time, Bitcoin's price began to fluctuate. The value of Bitcoin dropped sharply during several months, which caused panic among many Salvadorans. People who received Bitcoin as part of the government incentive saw the value decrease, which made them feel like the government had given them something worthless. Critics used this to attack the policy and to claim that the gamble had failed. Despite the volatility, the adoption of Bitcoin began to create a new economic trend, a growing Bitcoin community. A number of tech entrepreneurs, Bitcoin miners, and crypto enthusiasts started to show interest in El Salvador. This was one of the key goals of the government, to attract investment and to position the country as a hub for Bitcoin innovation. The government also built a major infrastructure project, a Bitcoin mining plant powered by geothermal energy from volcanoes. This was a unique move because it addressed one of the biggest criticisms of Bitcoin, its energy consumption. Bitcoin mining is often criticized for using too much electricity. By using renewable energy from volcanoes, El Salvador tried to make Bitcoin mining more sustainable. It's also created a new source of energy and jobs for the country, as the world watched. Several Bitcoin companies and startups began to consider El Salvador as a potential base. Some saw it as an opportunity to develop new products, build businesses, and access a new market. The country's reputation as a Bitcoin-friendly nation created a new brand image. It was no longer just a small country with economic problems. It was now known as the first nation to accept Bitcoin as legal tender. But what about the economy itself? Did Bitcoin improve the economy? This is where the real truth begins. The most visible benefit was the reduction of remittance fees. Before Bitcoin, Salvadorans living abroad had to use banks or money transfer services to send money home. These services often charged high fees, and the process could be slow. Bitcoin provided a faster and cheaper alternative. By using Bitcoin, remittances could be sent almost instantly and at a fraction of the cost. This was especially important because remittances make up a large part of El Salvador's economy. In many cases, families rely on this money for daily expenses, education, and healthcare. Reducing the cost of remittances directly improves the lives of millions of people. It also increases the amount of money that remains in the country, which can help local businesses and communities. However, the adoption of Bitcoin did not automatically solve the problem of financial inclusion. Many Salvadorans still lacked access to smartphones or the internet. This limited the number of people who could benefit from digital wallets. Also, many people simply did not trust Bitcoin or did not understand it. For many, cash remained the most reliable option. Another issue was inflation and price instability. Because Bitcoin is volatile, merchants and consumers faced uncertainty. A business owner who accepts Bitcoin might worry about the value dropping suddenly. This can make it difficult to plan expenses or manage profits as a result. Many businesses prefer to stick with the US dollar. To address this problem, the government promoted a system where the Chivo wallet would automatically convert Bitcoin into dollars. This meant that merchants could accept Bitcoin but receive dollars instead. This helped reduce the risk for businesses and encouraged adoption. However, it also reduced the impact of Bitcoin on daily life. If most people still use dollars, then Bitcoin remains more of a digital tool than a real currency in everyday transactions. The biggest challenge for the Bitcoin policy was trust. People needed to trust the government, trust the technology, and trust that the system would work. This is difficult in a country where many citizens have experienced corruption and instability. The government had to prove that Bitcoin would not be used as a tool for control or exploitation. In response, the government tried to increase transparency. They released reports on the adoption rate, created educational campaigns, and encouraged people to learn about Bitcoin. They also supported initiatives to improve internet access and digital infrastructure. These steps helped increase confidence among some segments of the population. The next major effect was on tourism. The Bitcoin policy created global attention. Many tourists, especially those interested in cryptocurrency, began to visit El Salvador. The country became a destination for Bitcoin events and conferences. This increased tourism revenue and brought international attention to the country's unique approach. In addition, the government promoted the idea of Bitcoin bonds, which were intended to raise funds for infrastructure and development projects. These bonds were aimed at attracting international investors who wanted to support the country's Bitcoin strategy. While the bonds received mixed reactions, they showed that El Salvador was willing to explore innovative financing methods. Now, let's talk about the most important part. Did the Bitcoin gamble actually work? The answer is complex. If we look at the short-term results, the adoption of Bitcoin did not immediately solve El Salvador's economic problems. The country still faces poverty, inequality, and high levels of crime. Bitcoin did not magically transform the economy overnight. However, if we look at the long-term potential, the policy has created a new path for the country. It has introduced a new technology, created a global brand, and opened new opportunities for investment and innovation. It has also reduced the cost of remittances, which directly improves the lives of many families. The key truth is this: Bitcoin was not a magic solution, but it was a strategic gamble. The policy created risks, but it also created opportunities. The real success of the gamble depends on the future, how the country continues to build infrastructure, educate citizens, and attract investment. Salvador's Bitcoin experiment is a lesson for the world. It shows that countries facing economic challenges can explore new and disruptive solutions. It also shows that innovation comes with risk. The world may criticize the move, but the country is still trying to build a new economic identity. In the next chapter, we will analyze the real impact of Bitcoin on the economy and whether the gamble can be considered a success in the long run.